Hi, how are we? Are we feeling good today? Oh, good.
So today we are going to be talking about creator burnout. Who here has heard about this maybe in the news or saw a headline, something about creator burnout? Maybe you didn't really understand what that was, but have you heard that term? Okay, just because it is something so new, and I feel like it's such an interesting topic for us to chat about, because this really wasn't something that we really discussed, I would say, 3 years ago.
No, not at all.
So I think to start, let's give you some context. Steph, maybe introduce yourself.
Sure.
Tell us about your videos and when you started and why.
Okay, well, my name is Stef Sanjati, and I've been doing YouTube videos and other digital creation for over 10 years. Since I was about 12 years old. Originally I started because I grew up in a very small town where I felt very isolated. And at the time, YouTube was really just a video sharing platform. It didn't have all the business aspects to it that it does now. And I went there to find community and connection and understanding of myself, and I found it. And so I wanted to give back and create videos so other people could do the same. And I started that in high school. And it followed me all the way to now. And when I really found my stride with YouTube was when I was about 19 years old. For context, I am a transgender woman, and a lot of my content online revolves around transgender issues or transgender education, or what transitioning is and all of that. So I went very, very personal with it. I documented everything very rigorously, including like surgeries and everything. It's very, very visual. Mm-hmm. And that's where I found my success there.
Do you think that part of the reason why you maybe experience some burnout is because you give so much of yourself in your videos?
I think that's definitely one part of it. I think it's very possible to experience burnout if you aren't making content that revolves around your personal life. But I think that's one aspect that did it for me, for sure. Mm-hmm.
And for context, Steph and I have known each other now for about 4 or 5 years. And we were like, where did we meet? To be honest, we met in this building.
Yeah.
And I don't think we've been back since. I think we met in that room even.
I think so, yeah.
Or even this one. Like, it looks really familiar.
It feels like a full circle moment for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
And so we've, for me, I do work with so many different creators. And I did have a podcast for about a year and a half, where I talked to creators about how they generate revenue, the different revenue streams, how they diversify that. And Steph and I did one of those. And we really do get into really deep conversations about this, and this is something that I talk to a lot of creators about, because when I started the business, #communications, we do a lot of brand deals with creators. When I started that, it was, you're working with a certain type of YouTuber, right? And then it's been really interesting to see that a lot of the YouTubers don't necessarily sustain their career. They have 6 months and then something happens. They have a year, something happens, which made it really hard on my end, where it was like, oh, wait, you mean they're not just like celebrities forever? Something happens. And it's been interesting watching your career, because you have sustained. That being said, bumps in the road.
Yes, definitely. Oh my gosh.
We were just talking about, I said, oh, your road trip, you went on for 3 months. And she's like, oh yeah, that was a time.
Yeah, it looked very nice from the outside, but oh my gosh.
So maybe tell us, what was that? And how did that affect your channel going away for 3 months?
So the way I see that road trip was, I actually went away for 3 months after the road trip.
Okay.
So the road trip lasted 4 weeks. The idea for me was to do daily vlogging on the road and have it be this cool, soul-searching experience where I just go on the road with one of my best friends and we experience the world, and I would share it with people. What it really was, in hindsight, was a symptom of creative burnout. What had happened really was I felt like I had to keep evolving and keep changing so intensely, almost like when a musician releases a new album and they have this whole new look and a whole new personality, right? And I felt like I had to do something like that. So I decided to literally run away from my problems. Which in hindsight was not the wisest, right? What ended up happening was, I'm gonna be very real here for a minute. I spent every cent of my money, went into debt, couldn't afford to eat, couldn't afford gas, couldn't afford a flight home. I lost everything, really, in that road trip. And I remember there was a moment when I really understood that I burnt out for real, was when I was on a live stream in Las Vegas, essentially begging for food. Like, it had gone that far. The creative burnout had gone that far. I couldn't even see what I was doing. And so I went home and I took 3 months away from YouTube, sorted out my stuff. I got treatment for what I needed treatment for, and I'm the healthiest I've ever been now. But that burnout was a lot darker than people think it can be.
Well, I'm the fact that you even recognize that you needed to get that help.
I did, yeah.
And I think there's a lot of YouTubers that don't realize that.
I agree.
And I think a lot of YouTubers have this a little bit of like an imposter syndrome because they feel, oh, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful I have this moment in time where I have all this fame and all this attention, and they don't also take that time.
No. I think there's a lot of fear too that if you take a step back, that you're going to be replaced instantly, you know? There's this song lyric that I'd heard recently. I don't remember the artist, but actually, I don't remember the lyric even, but it was essentially, you know, if you take a break, you're going to be replaced, so don't take a break.
I mean, I think that's like show business in general.
Yeah,
you know what I
absolutely.
mean? Like, oh, it's your time, you got it, take advantage.
Right.
But like, what does that do to a person? Also, now we're talking about you taking 3 months off, which is like unheard of in YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
People know that like, to win on YouTube, generally speaking, what does YouTube want? YouTube wants to be the next television, right? Like you look at what are some of the most popular things you see on YouTube? You see Jimmy Fallon, you see actually a lot of TV, right? Who do you see that's just like now got booked for a late night show? Lily Singh. Well, this makes sense. Lily Singh is gonna be she's great at making skits on YouTube. And so now she's going to have a late night show. Late night is really huge on YouTube. Now it's perfect. They have Lily Singh making this YouTube content, these skits that are just, it all works. They want to be TV. Now what does that do to a creator? They want creators. Why is it that 10-minute videos, you can only put multiple ad breaks in your video if it's over 10 minutes. So they're encouraging a creator, we want you to make videos over 10 minutes. They also, algorithmically, they favor videos if you do post multiple times a week. How do you keep up with that? How do you take a break? It literally becomes this feeling of like this golden handcuffs, does that make sense?
Yeah, oh my gosh, absolutely. It feels like you're always playing catch up. Like when I was on that road trip posting every single day, I literally did not do anything except for work. I woke up, started filming, filmed all day, found things to do, to film, to be engaging, to be interesting. Everything was filmed, and then by the time it was like 6 p.m., I'd spend the rest of the night editing until 10 or 11 sometimes. If I was lucky, it could be done by 8, maybe have 2 hours of whatever, and then I'd sleep, wake up, and do it again every day for 4 weeks. And the fact that I only lasted 4 weeks doing that, I can't imagine creators that are doing that even longer term, that aren't taking time to look at how they're feeling or taking, you know, stock of who they are or what they need in that moment. Because you really, when you're doing that, you can't stop.
No, I mean, and I relate to that because before I started a company, part of the reason why I even started a company was because before that I did make YouTube videos. So I had 2 channels. One channel, I would put 1 video out a week, and the other one, I was vlogging every single day of my life, putting out 2 videos a week. So basically, you are shooting every day, you are editing, it's like, all I did was live on camera for about a year. And what I found was a personal life is very hard. So then also that layer of what does that do to your mental health? So you see all these vloggers, vlogging is huge. Vlogging also builds such depth with your audience. You see a lot of kids, they want to become YouTubers. What's the first thing they're probably gonna do? They're gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna vlog me eating cereal. Well, where does that lead, you know? So I think maybe that's actually a question. What do you think of, because kids now want to be YouTubers and they're intentional about it. They're not like, oh, I'll stumble, because you stumbled into it. Whereas like YouTube or kids now, they also know there's a business around it. But what are your thoughts on that? Like a parent letting their kid get into it, knowing now how it's all set up?
I think it's okay. Like, I think it's okay for a kid to want to do that. I think it's okay for parents to encourage it. I think it's great for parents to encourage kids to pursue whatever it is that they really like. But personally, like I have a nephew that says he wants to be a YouTuber because he sees what I do and he thinks it's great. And when I hear him say that, honestly, it scares me because there's so much as a creator that, you know, your audience doesn't see, or, you know, the companies that you work with don't see. You have to wear so many hats. And if you have a team, if you have a production team, a writer, an editor, that's great. But that's very hard to do with no money, or that's very hard to do when you're just starting out. That's something that requires a business plan. And a lot of creators don't go into the business like that, especially creators from 5 or 10 years ago. So I'm glad that kids now, if they do want to get into this, they understand that there is a business around it, and hopefully they'll understand what goes into all that stuff. Hopefully that information's out there. But I think it's really important, going back to kind of what you said earlier about, I don't remember exactly what you said, but basically.
Some smart thing.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. There is this, when you're daily vlogging or when you're creating every day, there is no separation from your personal self to your work self. And I think a lot of people have, their 9 to 5, they go home and they don't have to work anymore. That's amazing. But even if you set those limits for yourself, like, oh, I'm not gonna work after 5 p.m., I'm not gonna work weekends, which is the new rule I have for myself. It's still, there's that feeling that, oh, like I should be engaging, I should be doing something. And it becomes this world where all you are is your work. All of your value as a person is in your work. You don't have value as a relative of other people. You don't have value as a person yourself. It becomes this tunnel vision to attention, engagement, success. And that is so unsustainable.
And not to mention, on top, you're just talking about YouTube.
Yes.
Imagine, it's like, and a new platform is being created and you're being told, well, get on TikTok. TikTok's the next big thing. Get on that. And you're like, another one and another one. And it's like, it becomes, you never feel like you're doing enough.
Right, oh, absolutely.
I even feel like that, and I'm not, my job isn't to be a creator online, it's to run a company, but, well, the company needs an Instagram, it needs a YouTube, it needs a Facebook, it needs everything, and how do you do everything well? And you listen to people as much as like, I'm sure a lot of you have heard Gary Vaynerchuk talk, and he's all about the hustle and all that, but it's like, how do you sustain that? You really do kind of need a team, and like we said, a team does cost money, to get an editor. Well, now you're probably paying maybe $500 for a video, and now you need maybe a producer. Yeah, I'm saying like modestly, and you also have to like inspire them to understand you as well. It's a whole other. And then you're nervous that they don't get your voice, and you can't necessarily let them. So there's a lot of I think like mental kind
gymnastics
going on in your brain. Exactly, yes. That's good. Okay, so then I'm sure there's people in here that maybe want to create a YouTube channel or any outlet. But what would you say that if somebody here wanted to start a YouTube channel, do you think it's possible for them to not experience creative burnout, and how is that possible?
I would like to say yes. And I think what I've learned going through such intense burnout and kind of recovering from that is that you have to have something outside of work. That goes for anybody, but especially as a creator, if your work revolves around who you are as a person, if it's personality based, if you're vlogging, if you're talking about your experiences, you need to have things outside of work that give you a sense of self, that make you feel valuable. So for me, before I took 3 months away from YouTube, like I said earlier. Before that, my entire sense of value was wrapped up in what I looked like and my work. That was it. That was all I knew gave me value. And so it would push me to, be thinner, have better clothes, and be posting all the time, which is not a life. And now, 3 months later, I understand that I need a hobby, so I paint. I understand that my friends are important to me, so I spend time with them. I call my mom every day. You have to have those things in your life if you're gonna be doing creative work on a platform, because if you don't, and all you have is your work, that's gonna hurt you. That's not a good way to live. So that would be my top advice.
I think the crazy thing is even sitting here right now across from you, the fact that I didn't know that you were going through that. It's like, I think that's another layer on top of it, like just because people seem like they've got it figured out, to maybe just take the time and maybe also being more honest with ourselves.
Yeah.
And like communicating if you're experiencing something that maybe something doesn't feel right, just to know that I had so many moments where you were in front of me and I didn't know that.
Well, to be honest, I didn't know it either. I couldn't, because I was so wrapped up in the behavior. When you're experiencing something that's that you could consider a self-harming behavior, so for example, overworking yourself, not eating right, etc., you can't interrupt that behavior and fix it until you stop the behavior. You need to kind of go to a place where nothing's happening to understand what feels wrong and what feels good. So I didn't know I was suffering either until I stopped.
One of the things that we talked about was looking at the kind of content that's doing well online, and no, maybe you don't have to post every day, but what's doing well is kind of more shocking stuff. And I think one of the things that I struggle with, even looking at on Instagram, I noticed I post so much less now, because for a while, I even felt like this. And like, I derive my value from my brain. Now, it wasn't always that way.
Yeah.
I worked in TV for a long time. A lot of my value came from what I looked like. And I noticed as I was posting on Instagram, even as I was growing and running this company and I felt empowered, for the first time I felt really strong, my pictures on Instagram started going in a direction where they would get just twice the engagement if it was a picture of my body looking good.
Yep.
And what it started doing, and I noticed I had to consciously stop it. It actually was my sister who's in the audience. She gave me a book for Christmas. It was called You Are a Message.
Ooh.
And it was just meditations for a creative entrepreneur. And I realized, oh, if I don't break that cycle and start making learn from me content instead of look at me content, there's gonna be, that's where I had to make that shift. You here have a responsibility of what you put online. Okay, and how you're gonna affect other people's mental health. So maybe today I may have a fraction of the likes, but I feel a lot stronger in what I post, and I feel more whole. And I think that is a message that I know personally I need to communicate with you, because there's a lot of young people, you affect the next generation, be it of little boys and little girls, and I think, it was a study that came out about a week ago, and it said that Instagram is ranked as the highest, the youth were naming it the highest ranked for like affecting your mental health in a negative way.
Right.
And this was interesting because it's also coming out with recently, basically the skinny bunny tea, like the diet teas. Basically now they can't promote to kids that are 18 and under. So we're going in a direction, it's just these conversations need to happen.
Yeah.
And at some point, the problem is these algorithms, they really favor that shock, that look, but what does that actually do to a person? So that cycle actually doesn't stop until we actually make that stop, right? So I think that was just something that, I don't know, I went on a tangent.
No,
I felt like it had to be said.
I agree. I think what's happening is what creators and consumers don't understand. I didn't understand this, maybe other creators do, but what these platforms are selling isn't a photo sharing service or video sharing service, they're selling attention.
Yeah.
And when you get that attention, for example, when I got overnight success, I mean, I worked for a long time, but when it happened fast.
Yeah.
Right? When you get all of that and it feels good and the growth is happening and you get the numbers and you get all the comments and everybody's loving you, you become dependent on that, you become addicted to it if you're not careful. And I wasn't careful, I had no idea that could happen. And I think that is, when we talk about the algorithm, it's not necessarily this, in unfathomable number code thing. It's the culture of starving for attention and pining for attention and clawing for attention. That's what I think of when I say the algorithm. Because there's no way to understand it, there's no way to work with it. There might be, but it's even if you think it's changing, right? And it becomes this never-ending chase for, essentially, and for lack of a better term, a chase for that high that you felt when you got the most of it. I got 20,000 likes, so then if my picture gets 15,000 likes, that's not as good.
Yeah,
so that's a failure.
How do you feel when that happens?
Oh my gosh.
What does it feel like?
So yesterday,
does it ruin your day? Or did it ruin
not
your
anymore.
day? Okay.
So yesterday I posted a picture that didn't have my face or any recognizable part of me in it. And it got about 3,500 likes. And for me, that's low. And honestly, when I was looking at it after an hour and it only had about 1,000, I was like, this is terrible. Like, oh my gosh, it's a failure. It's not a good post. I need to delete it. Or tomorrow I should post like a body picture where you can see my butt or whatever, because I know that'll get me an algorithm hit. And then I can post a witty caption that makes people think. But at the same time, is it really good if I'm still, putting that body piece in there, if I'm still encouraging other people to do the same thing? So consciously, I try my best to not let it affect me if I post a photo that isn't provocative and doesn't get as much attention. But realistically, I know that that's something I have to work on consciously,
So I don't know if anyone's going to give us the hoo-hoo, but I'm feeling like we've got about maybe 5 minutes more or so. So
about right.
I want to end with some like actionable,
Sure.
what can we do? So one thing is like healthy boundaries.
Yeah.
As a creator stepping into this, what are some healthy boundaries that you would recommend somebody should put forward?
I would say set hours for yourself.
That's good.
You know, I used to work nonstop every day because it was a hobby. I enjoyed it at first, but I think if, you know, once it becomes a business, say, okay, it doesn't have to be 9 to 5, maybe 10 to 6, maybe 11 to 7, whatever. But set those hours for yourself so there is time outside of your work for value, for hobbies, for something that makes you happy outside of that, right? And then I would say also take weekends off. Maybe your weekend's Monday or Tuesday, not Saturday and Sunday, but have that time where you're allowed to be something else. Mm-hmm. And I think, you know, it's great to say hustle, hustle, grind, grind, but take care of yourself too.
All right, and because there's also a lot of people who run businesses and there's different brands, what is a solution that you think perhaps a brand could create, or a MCN could create, or maybe, you know?
So,
we were
MCNs,
brainstorming before.
oh yeah. MCNs historically, from my perspective as a creator, have had a role of adding you to their roster, bit of ad revenue exchange happening, and some mild product promotion opportunities. And if you're lucky, they might take a liking to you and build some content with you, which is great. But I think overall, that's not the experience most creators have with MCNs. What I would like to see, and because you mentioned that, you know, YouTube wants to be TV, that's kind of the direction we're going in. What I would like to see is MCNs operating more like production houses.
Yeah, or a management company.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But having more of that business side, because, you know, like we said earlier, a creator that, you know, it's having a team costs money. Having high production value costs money. Having a writer, an editor, a videographer costs money. And so if MCNs can move into that space of supporting creators financially as a production house rather than an ambiguous amoeba right now, which is what my perspective is, I think that would be beneficial.
The thing is, some MCNs and management companies, they do have
Yes.
studios at their location.
Yes.
I think the shift is that, well, if there was a budget that was put towards, because a studio is not going to fit for everybody,
No.
and also you need a very specific type of editor,
Yep.
a certain specific type of shooter. So if there was a way to either share that resource, have somebody internal that could alleviate some of the stress of the
Right.
editing and whatnot, that would probably really help.
Absolutely.
In
I
order
think
to keep up.
That specifically is a great idea, because when you look for an editor, for me, I put out the word on Twitter and then I get all these emails, but I think it'd be simpler if MCNs had those kinds of, you know, skilled people on hand. I think that's a great idea.
And it could be a brand. TD could have a little
Right.
incubator in it. I'm just saying. Anyways. All right. Well, thank you so much, Steph. Thank you,
you.
everybody, for listening and sharing your time with us. I hope that you gained something out of it, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.